Avengers Age of Ultron is garbage, folks.
Is it an alligator or a crocodile? I don't know the difference, and at this point I'm too afraid to ask.
Look at that. That is a werewolf, folks.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Den Geek Presents Marvel Standom Live, where each week we give you the deepest possible dives on all the goings-on in the MCU, Marvel Comics, and beyond. With me for all time and always, we have Den Geek News and Features editor Kirsten Howard, Den Geek TV editor Alec Bajalin, and we are pleased to welcome this week's special guest, the host of beloved podcasts House to Astonish, Desert Island Discworld, and The War Effort, Al Kennedy. And it's a big show this week, but when aren't they? Because we're going to be diving into what we think the MCU version of Secret Wars could look like, as well as episode 4 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. But before we do all that, Al, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history as a Marvel fan?
Well, I am best known, I think, for the podcast House to Astonish, which I've been co-hosting since 2008, which is its comics news, comics reviews, and I think what can only be described as sort of a bit of mucking around at the end, which is effectively a makeover section called the Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe. I have been a Marvel fan since I can remember, really. I mean, it's a very common thing, I think, for UK comics fans, Marvel fans, to say that they didn't get into Marvel things through the comics originally because we just didn't have the widespread availability of them in the UK. So instead, we tended to get into them through things like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends cartoon or the X-Men 92 cartoon, depending on how old the person you're talking to is. Mine was definitely Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Although I think for a lot of people that translated into this lifelong love of Spidey. And for me, it translated into a massive New Warriors fandom through the vehicle of Firestar. I think my first actual real Marvel comic, US Marvel comic, was issue 2 of the Jim Lee and Chris Claremont adjectiveless X-Men comic, which I got when my parents took me to Glasgow one day, the big city. And I didn't know who any of the characters were. Opened the comic and there's a huge splash page of Magneto snarling. I just thought, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Then I turned the page and it's a double page spread of all the X-Men. I was like, who are all these people? Who is the guy with the stick? Who's the girl with the skunk hair? And all that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean that was it for me, really, and it's all been downhill from there.
I will henceforth refer to Gambit as the guy with the stick. So thank you. This is going to be
his power, is he can find a stick wherever he goes,
and he can look like he really needs a shower. Like that seems to be
exactly.
I see we're already off to a flying start here. You know, I also, Al, I have to appreciate, like, it never occurred to me until you brought it up that, like, Firestar's biggest moment in the comics, like, really did come with New Warriors, which was years after her biggest moment in broader pop culture, which is Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, you know? So
absolutely.
I never thought of how, because while Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was very much a gateway for me into the Marvel universe as well, I never really thought about it as being like, oh, well, Firestar, because again, I was in the States, comics were easier to find. And it's like, yeah, here's Firestar. And then, like, by the time New Warriors came around, it was like, well, yeah, I've had enough Firestar. Like it's
yeah. I mean, for me, watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, I vividly remember the very first episode of I ever saw, which was one that had the Lizard in, which is one of the reasons why, Lizard has always really been one of my favorite Marvel villains. I remember being about 3 or 4 years old and seeing this thing on the television and thinking, who is this dinosaur with trousers on? I see running around on the pavement like a mad person.
I love it. And that is also going to sneak into my descriptions of the lizard going forward. So thank you, Al. You've already successfully poisoned my brain, and we're only 4 minutes into the show. So look, obviously we're going to talk Secret Wars. And I know that's a big deal for you because you have a Secret Wars themed podcast that Kirsty has also guested on. So this is going to be interesting. Alec, this should be a fun education for you, because if you thought the Kang Dynasty sounded bonkers, just you wait, my young friend. But before we get into that, we should talk about our sponsor this week. Diet Smoke is the solution to avoid those, oh no, I'm way too high moments. Diet Smoke makes Delta 8 THC, Delta 9 THC, and CBD products that are perfectly balanced. Their gummies, drinks, and vapes are not only delicious, they're guaranteed to give you that beautiful buzz you've been looking for without melting you into the couch. By the way, I'm just going to confirm this personally because I tried one of their Delta 8 gummies over the weekend, and it was absolutely perfect for spending the next few hours reading like 24 Secret Wars comics. Anyway, Diet Smoke extracts... It's true. Diet Smoke extracts their THC and CBD from American-grown hemp, meaning they can ship directly to your door. No prescription, no sketchy weed dealer, no need to even leave the house. Diet Smoke just released a bunch of new products and flavors, so no matter what type of mood you're in, they've got you covered. So if you're ready for that perfect high, head over to dietsmoke.com and use code DENOFGEEK, all caps, one word, for 15% off your entire purchase. Must be 21 and older to order. And look, folks, I know, I just talked about my own experience with Diet Smoke, but please use responsibly, know what you're getting into, and have a good time. So with that in mind, let's see what trouble we can stir up with Secret Wars, shall we?
I'm sorry.
Wait, was this endorsement a little too enthusiastic for you?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to hold it together. I really am.
What not everybody might know is that there are two massively important Secret Wars stories, that are like 30 years apart, both of which will, impact how the MCU tells this story. How are we gonna explain this one?
I mean, you got to pick, I suppose, which one you think is going to be the basis for. Yeah. I mean, I would love it if Kevin Feige were just to pull a rug out from under us and say, no, we're not basing it on Secret Wars 1 or Secret Wars from 2015. We're going to base it purely on Secret Wars 2. And the entire thing is going to be about Spider-Man teaching the Beyonder how to use the bathroom. Incredible comic, frankly. But yes, I mean, I think there have actually been about 4 or 5 different comics linked into the whole kind of Secret Wars greater expanse of continuity. And some of them are linked to each other and some of them aren't. But there are definitely signs of the two, as you say, the most famous ones, 2015 and then 1984, currently turning up in the MCU. I think the mention of incursions in Multiverse of Madness was, I think, the first big, real warning klaxon that there may be signs of the 2015 Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars starting to make its presence felt.
Yeah, I think, first of all, confession, I've never read Secret Wars 2. I still have not gotten around to reading Secret Wars 2. I've only read the original Secret Wars like twice in my entire life. And once was just over the weekend. Now, the Hickman Secret Wars is another story. Like, I really dove into that with both arms. Like, I was reading it. First of all, I had been reading Hickman's Fantastic Four and Avengers as they were coming out. And those were the stories that led up to Secret Wars. And then I read that as it was coming out. And then I distinctly remember, like, right after it concluded, like maybe a day or two after the final issue of Hickman's Secret Wars came out, I sat down and just read those 9 issues in one sitting. And I was really moved by it. Like, I was really genuinely like moved by Secret Wars in a way that these big, often kind of dopey and unwieldy crossover event stories just do not do it for me. Like, I consider that version of Secret Wars to be probably the second greatest event comic of all time. It's like that and the original Crisis on Infinite Earths for me. So that's how highly I regard the new one. The original, your mileage may vary. Like, I'll recommend the new Secret Wars to just about anybody, but like to somebody who's not, especially somebody who's not used to kind of like the density of, Bronze Age Marvel comics, I feel like it can kind of be a tough sell.
Yeah, I think the 2015 one is an extraordinary comic, just absolutely spectacular. I remember when it was coming out and they kept having delays with releasing the issues and just being like I was jonesing for the next issue of Secret Wars coming out. But it does have that thing, as you say, it's a culmination of what was effectively a very long story that Jonathan Hickman had been telling across. I mean, bits of it go back to his S.H.I.E.L.D. series, his Secret Warriors, and, obviously through his Fantastic Four stuff and his FF, and then all the way through his Avengers books as well. So it really is kind of the capstone to an absolutely incredible body of work. And that's both a strength and a weakness for it, because it's got that huge richness to it. But at the same time, there's a lot going on there. And it's difficult to say to somebody, here's the collection of Secret Wars 2015. You're just going to start, who are all these people? Why has this kid got a cheeseburger in his pocket? All that kind of thing. Whereas at least the 1984 version, as ridiculous as it is, as purple as the prose is in it, is very, very straightforward. And it's got all the big hitter characters that you would expect. You've got various members of the Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Spidey, some of the X-Men. You've got the great She-Hulk, of course, who has some great moments in the 1984 Secret Wars. It kind of goes from A to B to C to D all the way along without having any massive disruptions or twists that come out of nowhere. But the one thing that it's got in common with the 2015 is, well, I suppose two things. One is this linking of the Beyonder across the two stories, because the Beyonder is introduced in Secret Wars in 84, and then he is he and his people are key to the 2015 version as well. But the other is that when it comes right down to it, both of these comics are effectively Doctor Doom stories. That's something that I think is going to be very interesting in terms of how they do this in the MCU, because we can't be far off of having Doom. I don't know whether the intention is that Doom will be in the FF movie or whether they're going to keep him back. But he's a pretty key player in both of those stories. So if he's not going to be in the FF movie or set up in advance of that, then they're going to have to do something else with, who knows, Kang, or maybe introduce the Beyonder. But it's going to be interesting.
Kirsty, am I jumping ahead if we dig into this Doom issue now, like, or like, is that going to take us too far off base today? I got in trouble for not sticking to the run of show last week, folks. So I just have to make sure that we keep it together here.
No, I was going to briefly talk about the Avengers that were in both versions, but Al's probably done quite a bit of it for me, because I was going to talk about that Doom is really at the center of both those major runs. But in the 2015 Hickman Secret Wars, Stephen Strange is kind of the co-villain. Which makes sense for the way he's being set up in the MCU at the moment. It feels like, yes, we could easily see Doom emerge. And actually, we asked across our social feeds for predictions on who the Avengers might end up fighting as the big bad of Secret Wars. And the results were pretty surprising to me, because on Instagram, Doom edged out Kang, but only by a couple of percent. Doom got 43% of the vote compared to Kang's 41%. On Twitter, it was a similar story with Kang winning like with 1% of the difference between him and Doom, and that was neck and neck. And this really says to me that although Marvel fans have been told that Kang is the big bad to watch out for, a lot of people aren't buying that Doom isn't about to hit the MCU in a major way, and that he will be a contender by the time Secret Wars rolls around in 2025. How could this go down? Well, a battle with Kang could effectively destroy the multiverse at the end of Kang Dynasty, and Doom and Strange could be there to pick up the pieces and put them back together as they did, with Battleworld in the comics. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but I think everyone's expecting Doom to be along any day now, really, aren't they?
I have concerns that because if Doom is indeed the villain of Secret Wars on the big screen, like, is 2 years enough time to establish this character? Because like Secret Wars 2015 in particular is almost, it's like the ultimate Doom story. It's like Doom is truly neither villain nor hero. It is Doom at his doomiest. And, I don't know if you can really do that without kind of like, look, we had 4 years, more than 4 years for Thanos to kind of become the threat that audiences were craving, and that, we kind of knew he could be. And for like, you couldn't just kind of like have Thanos go right from his appearance at the end of the first Avengers and then like do Infinity War 2 years later and have the same impact. You know what I mean? And I am a little concerned about rushing Doom, because this is, probably the single greatest villain in the history of comics. This is a character that the MCU desperately needs, like really needs to get right. And I don't know. I'm a little concerned here, and I'm fine with it being almost Secret Wars in name only and swapping Kang for Doom and whatever else. Like, I would almost rather they do that, kind of rush Doom to the screen and put us in a weird position.
I mean, there are ways of doing it. There is, if you start off Secret Wars, the movie, with, everyone that's around has a sort of collective sort of amnesia about what happened when the multiverse was destroyed, and they just think this is the way it is. And then slowly unlocking the mystery of Doom and why he's in charge here and what's happened to them. I think that could be interesting, but it depends really. I mean, I'm sure they've got a plan one way or the other.
Alec, is this just like Latin to you or what? Like, are we just like speaking Klingon at this point?
I'm picking up like every third world word. When I understand the Beyonder poops and somebody has a t-shirt in their pocket.
Everyone poops, Alec.
So I will say that one thing that's still not clear to me, speaking in all sincerity, is what Secret Wars is even about. And maybe we don't even want to go into that for potential spoiler purposes. But I can speak to the Doom of it all, I think. Mike, when you were talking, Andrew had those panels behind you with Doom just effortlessly vaporizing Thanos. I mean, that literally panel for panel, word for word, seems like it would be a pretty good introduction for Doom in the MCU, would it not? That's a nice, helpful shortcut to establishing the bona fides of the new big bad, to just have him take out the former big bad like he was an ant. I'm going to go ahead and confidently state that's happening. I'm just going to lay my flag down on that. And we never talked about this. I was right about the Thor Love and Thunder cold open. I called that. So this will be the second thing that I call correctly out of I don't know how many attempts. I'm not keeping track of the wrong ones.
Mark it down. We'll know in 2025, kids.
We need a Marvel Standom ombudsman who just like keeps track of all of these takes.
It's like the minutes of the meeting. Look, you're not wrong, Alec, as far as like Secret Wars is almost impenetrable, even for somebody like me who has read like, most of the stuff surrounding it. The other thing to kind of consider is that just the name Secret Wars carries a certain weight among fans, particularly fans of my age, because there was also a toy line. It's interesting that Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was like probably the most popular Marvel thing of my childhood. There was no toy line that went along with that. And like super toys and movies and TV shows were not like this thing that was everywhere. but Secret Wars was simultaneously a comic and a toy line. And that was a lot of kids' first introductions to characters, because like, who the hell is Kang the Conqueror? And why does he have an action figure? Like, I think that might have even been my first exposure to Wolverine, was because he was an action figure in the original Secret Wars toy line. And the actual toy line had like very little to do with the comic series it was theoretically based on, you know? So I think there's a lot of kind of flexibility they have in terms of telling this story, but there are definitely elements of it. I mean, Al, what would you say are the key Secret Wars things? Because there are commonalities between both versions. What are the key elements from both stories that you think absolutely have to make it to the screen?
I think Battle World is probably one form of Battle World or another is going to show up, because Battle World, that's the Secret Wars Battle World from the Hickman version, which is composed of little domains and fiefdoms which have been taken from different alternate realities. And with Marvel playing up the multiverse stuff at the moment, I could easily see that being the direction that they would take Battle World in for the MCU version. But even in the original version, they had a Battle World, and it literally was just, here is a world made of chunks of other planets, including an entire suburb of Denver, Colorado, which the Beyonder just lifted off of Earth and dumped onto Battle World. There's a whole town of people who were just having to go about their business for however many weeks the superheroes were away. And that's where you get characters like Tatiana and Volcana, who, you know, the hilarious thing about those characters was they're created for Secret Wars at the behest of the toy manufacturer so that there could be more female figures. And then they didn't make any female figures because it was so cheaply done. And this is the absolute God's honest truth. The same reason why there isn't a Hulk figure in the line. They were so cheaply done that it would have meant making a second mold.
I was going to ask you, can you break down, let's just say, the 2015 Secret Wars in a way that people who haven't read it, like Alec, and maybe people who are watching and listening, that they can understand easily?
Sure. I think trying to understand the 2015 Secret Wars easily is a very quick route to a breakdown. But the essential gist of it is that you have in the comics, as you have in the movies, a multiverse. There are alternate Earths and alternate dimensions and all these kind of what ifs of Marvel. And they start crashing into each other. And when they crash into each other, the two universes which collide essentially are destroyed, evaporate. And so the Avengers from our dimension, in the form of a kind of secret sect calling themselves the Illuminati, decide that what they need to do is start eliminating one or other Earth so that there aren't any more incursions. If there's going to be two Earths crash into each other, let's just take one of them out so that it doesn't destroy both of them. And this gets them into all sorts of trouble with the other superheroes, because of course it's a fairly kind of a cold way to go about it. But after this speeds up and happens more and more and more, what you end up with is a situation where there are only two realities left, and one is the regular MCU, regular MU rather, and the other is what's called the Ultimate Universe, which is where the character Miles Morales came from. And then at the end of Jonathan Hickman's Avengers run, these worlds are both effectively destroyed, and the whole universe is ended. And then we get Secret Wars, where you pick up with this thing, Battle World, which is made up of tons of alternate realities all kind of smooshed together cheek by jowl. And Doom somehow is the God Emperor of it all. And everything would go fine for Doom and his Grand Vizier, Doctor Strange, if it weren't for the fact that a whole bunch of the superheroes from our Marvel Universe had managed to stow away on a ship that stepped outside of the destruction of reality. And that brings Reed Richards face to face with Doctor Doom for the first time in this battle world reality. It's the story of Doom learning that actually he might not be the smartest guy in the universe after all. And that's the kind of the Cliff Note version of it.
Thank you.
Which is why
Yeah.
I didn't even get to talking about Secret Wars until about 3 minutes into that explanation. Like the rest of it was just talking about Jonathan Hickman's Avengers. Like this is why I'm saying, if you want straightforward, just pick up 1984 one, where it really is just, there is the Beyonder. He's just a big light in space, and he takes a lot of heroes and a lot of baddies, and he puts them in a box and shakes it. And that is the whole plot.
He's like the audience stand-in with the Secret Wars toy line.
He's the kid bashing the action figures together. The whole thing about the Secret Wars concept at all came from the fact that Marvel wanted to do. Marvel got approached by a toy company to do a toy line because there had been a DC line that had been very successful. And so they focus grouped it with a bunch of kids, and they found out that the two things that kids really, really, really loved and really clung on to was secrets and wars. And so they were like, great, Secret Wars it is. And that was how they named the comic.
And then there are a few different versions of how Jim Shooter went about writing this. His version is that only he, the great Jim Shooter, could possibly write something of this magnitude with this many characters. And then there's the other version where all the other writers were just like, I'm not touching that with a barge pole. You can have it, man. Just go right ahead. So
Jim Shooter, also the Beyonder, right? Another great villain in Marvel history. Wait, did I say that? I'm very sorry. Very sorry. Strike that from the record, fix it in post. Mindy Spotlight in the comments actually kind of backs up your opinion of this, Al, that the original Secret Wars is probably the easier one for folks to get into. He says Secret Wars #4 was my first hardcore introduction to the Marvel Universe. It's a great series to start with. What happens in #4? Al, pop quiz. What happens in Secret Wars #4?
I think what they're talking about here may actually be that Secret Wars 4, i.e. the Hickman Secret Wars, because there were 3 Secret Warses before it.
Oh, really?
I think they're taking issue with me. Only because they mentioned Secret Wars 2 in the very next comment.
Yeah, all right. Mindy, feel free to correct us. We'll circle back to this if we can. So, the other thing, and I know we really do need to get on to She-Hulk. However, yes.
Oh, no, yeah. There's a season
where they
4.
drop the mountain on the Hulk.
One of the greatest comic book covers of all time, of the Hulk supporting an entire mountain on his back and shoulders with all the other superheroes lying around on the ground. Oh, it's an absolute peach of a cover and a peach of an issue.
We do have to get on to She-Hulk. However, Kirsty pointed something out to me about the original Secret Wars that I never realized. This happened when they were doing your podcast, Al. And how weirdly horny the original Secret Wars is.
It really is. There's something in the water on Battle World, I think.
More people get laid in this one story than in 300 hours of MCU screen content so far.
Yeah. The main B plot of Secret Wars is a love triangle between Johnny Storm, Colossus, and a woman who doesn't really get to speak.
And Doom and the Wasp have a little something going on. And
Magneto and the Wasp.
It's Magneto.
Magneto and the Wasp. That's right. Sorry, that's right.
Magneto wanders around his base, showing off all his lounging couches. He's like, I'm gonna lounge over on this one and eat some of these fruit juices that I found. It's like, yeah, sure. You find things on an alien planet, you go ahead and just put those in your mouth, Magneto. I'm sure that will go fine for you.
Code Monkey in the comments is implying that Battle World had the same sponsor as this episode of Standom, and therefore everybody was very chill about everything. And I, might be something there. But I've already done my ad read for the episode. Come on, let's... This kind of stood out to me on my most recent read. I was, and Thorn and Enchantress keep disappearing to have talks, and
The Enchantress is incredible in the 1984 Secret Wars. She spends the vast majority of it drunk. And I'm not even joking. Like she's so fed up with the whole thing that she just goes off and finds booze and literally just staggers from scene to scene, completely half cut. I mean, her most sober and most villainous moment is when she tries to drown a water spirit in a bath. I'm not entirely certain that water spirits are particularly susceptible to drowning, but she seemed to think that this was a gore. So, I mean, I don't have a great background in water spirits, so I think I'm going to have to take the Enchantress's word for it.
You have a podcast dedicated only to Secret Wars. Secret Wars 2, Hickman Secret Wars. I assume the endless amount of crossover.
Yeah, we did. The War Effort was effectively a 12-episode special project that we did for shelfdust.com, which is a great comics criticism website. And we just covered the original Secret Wars an issue at a time. But we have been talking about what we would do next. Do we go for Secret Wars Hickman version? Do we go for Secret Wars 2? Do we actually step to the side and look at Crisis or something like that? You know, where do we go from there? So there's all sorts of different possibilities. But
my suggestion is that we do the Secret Wars tie-ins, because there are like 50 for that Hickman run, right?
Yeah.
There are so many.
Some of them are so, I mean, some of them are dreadful, but some of them are so good.
Yes.
Well, we should probably get on to this week's episode of She-Hulk, which was certainly eventful. Kirsty, why don't you, the color switch. Love it. That's my favorite part of every episode. Our producer, Andrew, is so good. Kirsty, why don't you tell us what happened in She-Hulk episode 4?
Sure. In She-Hulk episode 4, a hack magician called Donny Blaze is using the week's worth of mystic arts knowledge he picked up at Kamar-Taj to wow audiences during his lackluster magic show, drawing the attention of Sorcerer Supreme Wong, who just wants him to stop using his sling ring to send unsuspecting punters to dangerous realms. Things come to a head when Donny accidentally unleashes hell on his audience, and Wong and She-Hulk have to come to the rescue and clean up Donny's mess. Eventually, the magician agrees to cease and desist, and Wong makes fast friends with Madisynn, a drunk girl who fell through a portal in Nepal after Donny sent her on a wild journey in the midst of his show.
Al, I don't know if you're aware, but the Standom crew has been kind of split down the middle on She-Hulk overall. Kirsty is not particularly thrilled with it. Alec likes it well enough. And I've been kind of, men's amends, as the Italians in my family say. So, this episode, I thought it was fine. I thought it was, another adequate 30 minutes of TV. But Alec, what do you think? What were your overall feelings about She-Hulk episode 4?
My overall feelings is that it made me laugh again. Like that seems to be, the binary that's that's deciding where you fall on the She-Hulk spectrum. It either makes you laugh or it doesn't. And like last week, which I thought was probably the first actually good episode of She-Hulk yet, this week's was even better and it made me laugh even more. I think Madisynn is maybe the most precious individual in the world. I think nothing bad should ever happen to her. I stan her drunken ways. I just love how cartoonish and interesting the tertiary figures are in this show that have nothing to do with like the story at play. They just pop up to just kind of be cartoon characters and then go away.
What if Madisynn is actually the Enchantress? You know what though? I'm gonna back you, Alec. Madisynn is great. I am more invested in Madisynn after her aggregate 6 minutes of screen time in this episode than I was in Stephen Grant after 6 episodes of Moon Knight. Like Madisynn is funnier, more engaging, less grating, less irritating, and somebody that I would actually want to spend more time with than 1/3 of our on-screen Moon Knight personalities. Sorry, folks. I need to get my Moon Knight jab in once a week on Marvel Standom. It's in my contract. Kirsty, don't worry, Al. We'll get to you because you may be the tiebreaker this week. But Kirsty, What did you think of episode 4?
Yeah, I'm not enjoying the show. I've not enjoyed the 4 episodes we've had so far, but I'm delighted that other people are enjoying it. And just because I don't like it doesn't mean that, everyone shouldn't have a nice time watching the Marvel Lawyer show. That's great. 2 thumbs up, and I love and support you. I hate this. I hate it. I just, I'm not having fun, and I want to go home.
Al?
I've generally enjoyed the show, but I think I'm from obviously the Bizarro world to the one you guys are from, because I think this has been the weakest episode so far. My main issue with it is that, in the first episode, she looks to the camera and she's like, lawyer show. And it's not. It's not. The reason that she manages to save the day at the end of this episode is because she threatens a guy with effectively a parademon. And that would have been the case regardless of whether or not there was any, cease and desist having been served. She says to fakey Chris Angel, are you going to stop doing your thing? He's like, no. And she's like, how's about I get you with one of these guys? And he's like, okay, fine. I do think that they have this fantastic opportunity to do a kind of workplace sitcom within the Marvel universe. You do have the opportunity to have your action set pieces and things like that. But at the same time, if you're going to do lawyer show, do lawyer show.
I did enjoy this episode, and I enjoyed last week's too. But this show has all of the elements on paper where it really should be my favorite Marvel show. Because like one of my favorite format of TV lately is like the half-hour semi-comedy genre show. So like What We Do in the Shadows, Barry, Glow to a lesser extent, and I thought, I'm like, wow, She-Hulk is going to be that, but in the MCU. And it doesn't quite pull it all together. Like when I look at how What We Do in the Shadows nails every single element of vampire mythology as a whole, I've been waiting for She-Hulk to like properly do that with the MCU, and it hasn't quite pulled it together yet, and like the elements are there, and like Wong is helping, but I don't know. It still falls. So I'm still the fence sitter here.
I was thinking earlier though about, my favorite sitcoms and what they were like in season 1 compared to when they really hit their stride and as they go along. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's it for She-Hulk. Maybe I'm just finding it whatever right now. But if they keep doing seasons of this and we're on season 3 or 4 and it's really like hitting the jokes out of the gate, and then they're bringing stuff back and there's running gags, where I'm involved, like maybe it will hit home with me, but it just hasn't got there yet in this season.
Perfect example, Kirsty. I mean, my beloved and departed Legends of Tomorrow was not the show that it eventually became, like its first season, 2 season, like its first season especially, which I liked well enough to begin with, but like its first season especially, and maybe its second season, like Legends of Tomorrow didn't become everything it could be until season 3, season 4, where it just like, I mean, I'm going to use our one F-bomb of the week, but like that show stopped giving a fuck. Like it just completely was like, we're just going to do whatever we want every single week. And I don't think She-Hulk is quite ready to do that yet, And I do want this show to succeed. I really do.
I'd like them to lean a little more on these characters that they are bringing in for the show itself. Because as Alex said, the characters that are the kind of the randos in this corner of the MCU are terrific. I think Madisynn is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I just want to see her as this kind of internally happy-go-lucky dimension hopper wandering around with an Aperol spritz in one hand and the goblin's heart in the other. You know, booze and viscera could be a really good motif for this one. But the difficulty that I had kind of with last week and this week, both, is I get where they're going with let's have cameos from the MCU. But as much as I absolutely love Benny Wong, I think he's incredible, they can afford Benedict Wong in a way that they can't afford Chris Evans every week, if you see what I mean. And it just kind of, it feels a little bit like, well, who can we possibly get who is involved enough in the MCU that it's somebody people will appreciate seeing back. And we are, you know, eternally blessed with the fact that he is sensational in this. But it does kind of feel that Wong is being turned into the new Phil Coulson. Like, he is an actor that is cheap enough to bring back on a regular basis, but who gives the universe a bit of coherence. And that's fine. But then when you have the repeated point made direct to camera of, oh yeah, you love your cameos, you love your Wong, there'll be another treat along soon for you. And I know that for She-Hulk, the fourth wall breaking is a huge tradition, and you know, I would never want to try to take that away from the character. But I do wonder if, you know, 3 episodes in is a little early to be kind of knocking at its own foundations.
You know, folks rightfully, and by all means, like, people, you know, people give this to us in the comments, and they give it to us, like, you know, in the comments here as well as on dennygeek.com. You know, they're like, look, it's a comedy, like, just let this show be goofy and do its thing. And fair enough. But like, I pose this question to everybody on this panel right now and to the folks watching in the comments live. Like, do the jokes land for you? Yes or no? Does this show make you laugh? Alec?
Yes.
Kirsty?
You don't need to ask me if I'm laughing at this show. No.
Yeah. Nugma2708 just said no in the comments. Al?
50-50, I would say. I mean, I am a very bad choice to be your deciding vote here because I am effectively the in-betweener. Okay.
Nindy Spotlight in the comments says more often than not, yes, fair. Our producer, Andrew, said exactly once. I was very, very worried after episode 2. Like, so this is a cultural reference that Kirsty and Al, I don't know if you're going to get this, but Alec might. There's a particular brand of quote unquote comedy in the United States in particular that like really, really drives me up a wall. And it's the kind that you usually see in commercials for really boring products that are just trying to be really quirky. You know what I mean? And like the quirk is the joke. So it's like, in particular, there are these insufferable insurance commercials for a company that I will not name, but like, Alec, you probably have seen them. They are advertised on like every sporting event on the planet. And like, that's what episode 2 felt like to me. Like it was like that kind of, but you know what? Episode 3, yes. And with the triumphant arrival of Madisynn in episode 4, like I finally got some proper laughs out of this episode. Like Madisynn made me smile. Jen's to-do list, which one of the things on the to-do list is edit to-do list. And then in parentheses says 2 hours. That was like a personal attack, but I still laughed. Kirsty is smiling because they know. Yeah. So, all right. So it seems that the audience is more in favor that, you know, the jokes are working for them more than they might be for us. And fair enough. I just had to know, you know, so we're getting there. Should we talk about the dating stuff?
I think it's kind of indicative of how maybe like all over the place She-Hulk can be at this point, that we haven't really talked about the dating stuff yet. Like that ended up being a complete afterthought in my review when I wrote that earlier today as well. That seems to be the thing that they thought would be like the absolute slam dunk best part of the episode, but I don't know if the show is like mature enough to tackle that quite yet, just because like the conclusion it comes to of like Jen trying to grapple with the fact that like some people are fetishizing her, or at least only interested in one part of her that she herself is not interested in, is fairly heavy stuff, and it kind of like falls flat in comparison to Madisynn and her 2 S's and 1 Y, but not where you think. So yeah, I think maybe it's a little telling that this hasn't even come up until now. I think the show wanted us to lead with this, and we just rejected it.
I think this is a very rose-tinted glasses version of online dating. I've been on a lot of Tinder dates, and they are haunting and grim, and I have blocked a lot of them from my memory. So this is a very, this is a very light version of Tinder dating, but no, I won't explain further. There'll be no more details.
I think Jen's experience of Tinder dating, as opposed to She-Hulk's experience of Tinder dating, is an interesting point for the show to make, because it is one of these things that they keep coming back to, which is that people look at her differently when she's Jen to when she's She-Hulk. And that will be in her professional life, and it'll also be in her personal life. So I do appreciate them making that point. My only concern is, one, how many dates did she go on in how long a period of time? Because we saw her date about 5 people in apparently about 2 days. So she's very busy. I'm not entirely certain she's spending the requisite time vetting these people before she's actually going with them. Particularly given that she seems to be taking them to the same place, to the same table every single time. Sorry, we just got a shot there of one of the things that is my actual biggest pet peeve about She-Hulk show so far, which is, for the love of these poor VFX crews, please stop having this character pick up telephones, because it just looks horrendous. But yeah, I do wish that she'd had at least one mediocre date rather than every date being abysmal. Or if they were going to have every date be abysmal, have all the abysmal dates be more distinctly ridiculous and funny.
Also, Al, you're not alone. Lee just mentioned that he was confused how she went on so many dates in one night. So, like, look, I gotta give them a little bit of a pass here. Like, it's a 30-minute show. So, I do wish, though, like, if they see one of my hopes for She-Hulk was that this was going to feel like a retro TV show in more ways, right? And this does feel like TV, which is good. But like, I almost was, the dating thing just felt like a beat that they hit this episode, where it could have been a recurring gag, like over the course of a season. Like, I don't know if anybody remembers, I'm so old. I don't know if anybody remembers Murphy Brown, but like, there was just like an ongoing gag on Murphy Brown where like, she just could not get a decent secretary. Like, she just could not get a personal assistant. And every week there was a different nightmare personal assistant. And I think some of the She-Hulk stuff could have been funnier if just like every week, like, we know at some point in the episode, Jen is going to go on a date and it's going to be lousy in some kind of way, and maybe some of these would have hit a little, a little better as well.
This is kind of where like She-Hulk is almost like fighting against its like the Marvel format to a certain extent. Like, we talked earlier about how, like, sitcoms can go a whole season before finding their voice. Like the first season of The American Office and the first season of Parks and Rec are six almost pointless episodes that just are completely different from what follows. She-Hulk, like, in a world in which the new Daredevil gets announced as 18 episodes? I feel like She-Hulk would have been better served as something that could have settled into like that more networky length of 18 episodes, and then maybe it wouldn't have felt pressured to shoehorn in these kind of Marvel-y, like, what if a superhero dated type things in the span of like 1 12-minute B story. So it does struggle against kind of the traditional Disney Plus format. But again, I think maybe I'm more willing to give it a pass just because I thought it would be even less TV-ish than it ended up being. Mike, like you had much higher hopes than I did, and I feel like you are surprised at it and like not being quite as TV as you anticipated, whereas I'm just astonished that we're getting like just completely floored and astonished that we're getting legal cases of the week. Like I cannot believe they're actually doing it. I cannot believe they're actually attempting to make something that even almost approaches an episode of television.
Sorry, I thought you said legal cases of the weed, and I
legal cases of the weed.
ad read. Sorry. We're in the UK where we can't get legal cases of the weed, so we're just high on life, baby. That's where we're at.
No, and look, I know it's not fair. Like I should not be critiquing the show. I should not be critiquing the show that I wish She-Hulk was. You know what I mean? Like I know I always say I'm not going to do that, and I always end up doing it. So like, you got to rein me in a little bit. But Alec, I think your perspective is a little bit healthier than mine in that regard. Also, I have to ask, Alec, as Den of Geeks TV editor, when I brought up Murphy Brown, like, does anybody remember Murphy Brown who is under the age of 40? Like,
I've never watched Murphy Brown, but I'm familiar with Murphy Brown, and my mom used her as an example to explain what sarcasm was to me.
Oh, really? Yes, that's perfect. That's textbook. You know, I think one of the things that has prevented Murphy Brown from kind of like staying in the pop culture lexicon, Kirsty and Al are so bored right now. But like, I think
I had to sit through 9 hours of Secret Wars. You guys can handle a Murphy Brown.
But I think Murphy Brown has the moonlighting problem because it used a lot of like classic music in it. Oh, so like that has impacted home media releases. That has definitely impacted streaming releases, you know? So I think like Moonlighting, this is a show that has kind of disappeared from the lexicon because it's just not readily available, even though it was like groundbreaking and beloved at the time. Anyway, join us next week for Murphy Brown Standom, which will just be me and maybe my mom and maybe Alec's mom. That would be kind of cool, actually. Let me know if you want to see this. Is there anything else about Wong being, I mean, like obviously Al kind of talked to the practical and industrial reasons why Wong is the recurring MCU guest star of the moment. But watching this episode, I was kind of wondering if there were any other reasons why it feels so important to be tying Jen to the Sorcerer Supreme in particular, or we could just talk about Wongers because he's cool. Like, what do we think about this? Al, I'm going to start with you this time.
I think Wongers, firstly, he is amazing, and I will refer to him as Wongers forever from now on. But I think that the great thing that he brings to it is the same thing that he brings to the Doctor Strange movies, which is that he is the grounded character who can point out the ridiculousness of something because he's been around the block and he's a little jaded and he knows what's going to happen if things go wrong, because they always go wrong because superheroes get involved. So having that kind of character, I think, really benefits the show because you get to have this kind of Statler Waldorf style little voice in the corner going, this is a bad idea. Don't do that. Don't touch that. No, don't touch that. The demons will come to, I told you. That kind of thing.
Kirsty, Wongers?
I love Wong. I think he's getting a lot more to do here than he got to do in Multiverse of Madness. I was rewatching that recently because I thought I might have been too hard on it. So I gave it another go recently. And how many times does he just get hit with something, either magic or an object, and just launch across the room and have to roll it off? I dare you next time you watch that movie to see how many times that happens to him. It's an excessive amount, and I just feel like he deserves so much more than that. So at least we're getting to spend time with him here, and I'm never mad about spending time with Wong, really.
And folks, you all missed out because Kirsty was unavailable when we did the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness episodes of Marvel Standom. And so I got all of the Doctor Strange venom. And if you think I'm hard on Moon Knight, we got to do a bonus episode so that Kirsty can just unload on Doctor Strange. I'm glad you're giving it a shot, though.
I'm not even mad about it anymore. I'm just
Anymore.
I got it all out of my system.
We all have to go on record as to what MCU thing makes us the angriest. Like, we just have to have that like written in the Marvel Standom book of laws.
Alec, what is yours? I don't know yours.
I mean, Moon Knight comes pretty close, but I feel like I'll cede that to you. Like, I really, really hated Moon Knight. But if I have to pick one thing for myself, I think I would go with Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, really? Okay.
Really hated it. Like,
wow.
Really,
Okay.
really hated it.
Okay. But Wongers, Alec.
Yeah, Wongers. Well, I mean, like, look, you guys have covered a lot of it already. I like Al's point of just kind of like the logistical perspective of like, you know, Benedict Wong being available. But his character is also like just kind of available. This is the multiverse saga, and he is the Magic Man who is not, you know, currently have like a third eye in his forehead like the other Magic Man. So from that kind of in-universe logistical perspective, he should be around more frequently. And I think it does work. Like you guys have pointed out and Lee pointed out in the comments, is that he's a good foil. Like he is a straight man. Like he'll take what another actor gives him and just like absorb it, like just like be part of the scene. And that's another one of the reasons why I think She-Hulk's like super duper supporting characters have worked out so well. Because we've gotten 2 weeks of Wong, who's just like this wonderful foil to whoever you put with him. I think Madisynn would be like 60 to 79% less funny if she wasn't bouncing off of Wong most of the time.
I was going to say my great hope for Wong and Madisynn is that we get to see some kind of shorts of the two of them in the vein of the Thor Team Daryl shorts that were on the Taika movie releases. So just, you know, 5 minutes of the two of them just hanging out, chilling, watching Superstore, whatever.
One thing I was gonna actually, I know we have to wrap this up in a sec, but I was just gonna ask if anyone else, you know, when Wong said we've got them left over from the wedding, did that say to you that Doctor Strange and Clea had got married, or is he just talking about some random wedding? Is it going to turn out to be nothing?
I thought they were referring to Christine's wedding, but then
But that wasn't in Kamar-Taj, right?
No, but it does suggest that Wong is an inveterate minesweeper who just goes around picking up abandoned bottles of alcohol and spiriting them away.
That actually sounds fine. Like the yak milk and vodka or whatever seems a weird thing for Christine to have at a wedding. Maybe I missed something there.
No, I that's the thing. Like the yak milk and vodka makes me think like this could have been a Clea wedding, right? But they wouldn't do that off screen, right?
Well, I mean, they would surely not miss the opportunity to put Charlize Theron in another dress that looked like she's just robbed Spirit Halloween.
Any other favorite Easter eggs before we start wrapping it up this week? Oh yeah, that's right. If you look at the cases on the, you know, that are like, you know, potentially on the menu there's a lot of different like all of the, you know, person versus person cases are almost all of them are people who have worked on She-Hulk comics. But what they do is they mix up the various creative teams. So there's like a Lee versus Byrne, you know, there's you know, Charles Soule, who is an actual lawyer and who wrote a delightful She-Hulk run. Like his name appears on there. It's a neat little catch. And considering that the name of the law firm is Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, and only Holloway is an actual MCU character. Martin Goodman, of course, was the first publisher of Marvel Comics. And wasn't he Stan Lee's uncle? Didn't he hire Stan Lee because Stan Lee was just like some annoying kid?
He was a pure nepotism hire, yeah.
Yeah, and of course that is Stanley Martin Lieber. And Kurtzberg is Jacob Kurtzberg, who is in fact Jack Kirby, who did all of Stan's work for him. So like it's a really clever law firm. And then of course all of their creator names, all of their cases are based on creator names as well. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Oh yeah, Lee says maybe it was the Green Minotaur from from Multiverse of Madness who got married. I hope he's okay. I want nothing but happiness for him. So I think that's it, right? Anything else before we go? Good, because our producer's ready to kill me. So that is it for this week's episode of Marvel Standom. Al, why don't you tell everyone one more time where they can find you, please?
If you want to find out more about what I think about mostly comic books, but also really kind of shocking puns, then I'm on Twitter at House to Astonish. The House to Astonish podcast can be found at housetoastonish.com, which has also got a blog. Remember blogs? A blog that my co-host Paul O'Brien does, which is a lot of brilliant reviews on X-Men comics. And you can also find my other podcast, Desert Island Discworld, over at desertislanddiscworld.com. It's basically half biographical interview, half book group, where I ask a guest every week if they were cast away to a desert island, what Terry Pratchett book they would take with them. And if you want to hear the Secret Wars podcast that we did for Shelf Dust, then it's just there on shelfdust.com.
Great. Al, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you come back.
I would love to come back. I had a great time.
And I promise I won't talk about Murphy Brown next time. However, Code Monkey says that they would join for a Murphy Brown or Moonlighting Standom. So, Alec, let's introduce your mom to my mom. We'll set up Murphy Brown Standom. Kirsty and I have a long history based on moonlighting. So, it's maybe this will happen. It's not going to happen, folks. Anyway, folks, you should know we've got 2 big episodes next week. First up, you'll want to be here on Tuesday, September 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern, because I will be doing a live interview with the legendary Alex Ross about his new standalone Marvel graphic novel, Fantastic Four: Full Circle. So join us on Tuesday for a live and exclusive chat with one of the greats of a generation. And then we will be back right here, same She-Hulk time, same She-Hulk channel on Thursday, September 15th to break down all the new MCU announcement that we're expecting this weekend, as well as more nonsense relating to She-Hulk episode 5. Now, make sure you're subscribing to us wherever you're watching or listening right now. And by the way, does everybody who's listening via podcast know that, you could also watch us live on Twitch? You can watch us at twitch.tv/denofgeektv if you want to see my face. You could probably barely put up with my voice. I don't know why you want to do that, but we'd like to see you. Join the comments. It's fun here. Don't forget to check out our web home at denofgeek.com, where you can find all our Marvel coverage. Go straight to denofgeek.com/Marvel for that. Drop us a line. Let us know your burning questions and what you want us to cover in upcoming episodes. We're at Marvel Standom on Twitter and Instagram. Give those a follow, and you can yell at us there. I don't know. Don't forget, we also have a DC show, so check out DC Standom when you can on all major podcast platforms. And if you came in late, you'll be able to watch this entire episode on denofgeek.com or at our YouTube home, DenofGeek US. We really need to change that. Don't forget, you can check out past episodes there and also wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks once again to our always patient Andrew Halley, the best producer in any corner of the multiverse. Thanks to DenofGeek's social media coordinator, Lee Parham, for keeping everyone in line in the comments. Go follow our TikTok at DenofGeekTV. Lee's doing great work over there, folks. And a special shout out to Michael R. for making the podcast version of this show all it can be. But most of all, thank you all for watching, listening, following, and subscribing. This has been Marvel Standom on the DenofGeek Network. Until next time, remember, folks, we stand together.